Good evening, Los Angeles, and thank you again for joining me for our nightly briefing on COVID-19. Tonight is the first night of Passover for the Jewish people, a night in which all of us know the story of the redemption of those who were once enslaved moving to the Promised Land. It'll be a very different Passover this year, as instead of gathering at tables for seders with families, Jews here in Los Angeles will do this virtually or in smaller groups, just as we will see Christians on Sunday celebrate the holy day of Easter in a different way than we have in the past. But I hope that we all can feel and see that light and that hope, that we refuse to live in fear. Today there was the news that came out of China, from Wuhan, which was the epicenter of where the COVID-19 crisis began, of folks finally being able to come out and to go back to some normalcy of the lives that they once had, 76 days after they had their stay-at-home order. It shows us that this will not be an easy path, but it will be one that we will walk through. There will be a day, and that day is somewhere ahead of us on the calendar, in which we will return to seeing each other in 3 dimensions instead of 2, in which we'll be able to hold and to hug each other, which schools and businesses will be back. But until then, we have to do everything we can to accelerate that date by staying at home and doing our part. And I thank you, as always, for what you do to make this city work and to save lives as well. We always make decisions that are rooted in the advice of our medical professionals and in the data that we are seeing. So let's begin, as we always do, right there. We continue to monitor what we as Angelinos are doing to slow the spread of COVID-19. And as you know, this is an army of people out there, doctors and nurses, public health professionals led by Dr. Ferrer and other county officials, cities and government officials, bus drivers, grocery clerks, people who are in the warehouses, making sure that we can live during this crisis, but that also this crisis is as short as humanly possible. I've shared with you that our overall momentum, our movement, in terms of our acceleration in the number of cases, is down. But we also saw today that the number of cases continue to rise. And I also wanted to share you other data about our movement in the city. I mentioned that we had been rated an A, we went down to a C, we've been a B- and back to a C. Let's do everything we can, especially this week and the coming week, to stay at home. We monitor our traffic patterns, and we're seeing more movement on some of our roadways. We're receiving also concerned calls to our hotline about this movement, which means that people are back in the cars. If you look at some of those traffic maps, we see, for instance, on PCH, some moments when PCH south of the LAX area is yellow. We see some pinch points where we don't have any red in the city, but it's not all green. So please make sure that you're staying at home, that you should only be driving if you absolutely need to. And even if you need to, if you can stay home, please try to as well. And so my ask is that you get off the road. As we've gone and downgraded by Unicast, I'm challenging us all to try to get back up to an A, which means more of us staying in the neighborhood, preferably be staying just at home. If you exercise, stay close to where you are, to make sure there isn't spread between neighborhoods and communities as well. So let's dig into the data for today. Today there were 620 new cases, numbers which are huge compared to what they were just a week or 2 ago. And that brings the total number of cases in Los Angeles County to 7,530 cases. The slightly positive news is that this is the 3rd day in a row of an increase less than 10%. This represents a 9% increase since yesterday, but the 3rd highest number of cases that we have seen. And most tragically, the highest number of deaths. 29 deaths that we saw, bringing our total to 198 fallen Angelinos. This was a 17% increase since yesterday, and our deaths continue to double every 4 days. If that doesn't sober you up about what is ahead, nothing will. And these aren't numbers, these are people. And as always, especially as we enter these holy days ahead, our heart aches for those that are lost in this journey that we are moving through. But as we prepare for the peak, we're also focusing very carefully on the beds that we have available in our hospitals. And hospitals and medical professionals are doing an amazing job being able to expand those beds, move the architecture of hospitals around build out other places from obviously the USNS Mercy to the Convention Center and others. But today, at our general emergency hospitals alone, there are 1,548 available beds, including 247 ICU beds, and an inventory of just north of 1,042 to be exact, ventilators available. This testing, as you know, has been absolutely critical to our ability to know who has COVID-19 and to get them the help that they need. I shared with everybody earlier this week the good news now that anybody who has symptoms, not anybody without symptoms, but anybody with symptoms, can go to coronavirus.lacity.org/testing and go to a city or county drive-through and or walk-up center. We now have over 18 of those throughout the county. This is great, great news. And we're working with other providers who are working with our senior population, our population of people experiencing homelessness and others to continue to grow this capacity. Today, we had a whopping number of tests, 4,000. The first day we've had that many tests in a day, bringing us to 28,700 tests completed through these centers, on top of what hospitals and providers are doing. And we're going to reach the 30,000 milestone that I talked about last week, a day ahead of schedule tomorrow. Even if slots are filled up for a given day, I remind you that if you log on, they say there's nothing else available, it will now kick you to the next available day. So keep going and check midday if you haven't been able to, because sometimes we're seeing about 15 or 20% of people not show up. So you may be able to get an afternoon appointment even if you weren't able to get one the night before. With that, let me share a few announcements on our new steps to keep Angelinos safe and to support all of those neighbors of ours that are doing their good work to stay at home. Each year, I know it's one of the great traditions of Los Angeles to head to the park to celebrate Easter. Maybe it's for an Easter egg hunt, maybe it's after church services to sit and have a picnic. But this isn't a normal year. And so I'm announcing that on Sunday, our parks will be closed. Before, we've closed the facilities and the trails that are in our parks. But for this Sunday, the parks will be altogether closed, except for the bathrooms, which are being used right now, people experiencing homelessness and others. We'll have park rangers and LAPD out there. We can't be everywhere at all times, so I'm counting on all of you. And I know that your heart breaks, like so many of the things that we've had to do. This is such a fun moment for our kids. This is such a great tradition that many families have. But we can't afford to have one cluster of just even a few people together spread this disease to more people and kill them. We are doing so well so far. I'm so proud of each one of you. And while we can always do more, we want to ensure that we don't slip while we have these better days. So it will be absolutely critical. It will be closed from the evening of Saturday, April 11th, through the morning of Monday, April 13th. The county has taken the same actions, and that includes lakes and botanical gardens as well. All the closures we've announced in recent days remain in place. Our trails, our facilities, our beaches, our playgrounds, those stay closed today, Sunday, and after Sunday. But this is just for the walking through a park or spending time in a park on Sunday to stay safe. While we've asked everyone to stay safer at home, not everybody has a place to call home. And so from the beginning, since January, we've been focused on what we can do for our fellow Angelinos who are experiencing homelessness. Testing today moved forward for Angelinos experiencing homelessness. And now we have 10 locations where people who are homeless can now go with trusted doctors and clinics that they already go to for their health concerns. And thank you to those clinics, those community clinics, those doctors who have stepped forward to ensure, whether it's Skid Row or another part of the city, that testing can be there for folks regardless of whether we are housed or unhoused. We know that folks that are experiencing homelessness are both susceptible and vulnerable. They are susceptible because of living on the streets and vulnerable because so many of them have underlying health conditions already. And I hope all of us, after we get through COVID-19, will recognize that being on the streets, you have twice as likely a chance to die as those of us that are housed, so that we keep this momentum going. Public health isn't just about COVID-19, it's about the humanitarian emergency we have on our streets every day. And from the beginning, I've been committed to improving our sanitary conditions where our unhoused Angelinos live, putting more than 300 sanitary stations for washing hands on our streets, dozens of porta potties. But I was disappointed to learn that many of those hand washing stations didn't have water or soap or paper towels. So thanks to Judge Carter, to my Deputy Mayor, Christina Miller, for the fast action. We have talked to the folks that are our vendors, and instead of being checked once a week, they will now be checked daily to ensure that people living on the street can maintain sanitary conditions and all of us can help stop the spread of COVID-19. That will begin starting tomorrow. And we're continually adding capacity to our emergency shelters at our rec and park facilities to meet the need, as well as bringing motel and hotel rooms online through the state Project Room Key, which is supported by the city, LASA, our Homeless Services Authority, and the county, as well as many nonprofit partners. And a total of 1,069 beds at 15 hotel sites are secured and moving to staff up to be made operational. And I thank so many folks who have brought us hotels. Councilmember Joe Buscaino today had one down in his district by the harbor. We've seen hotels from Van Nuys to downtown, close to Skid Row, and others step up. We need more. We need to get them faster. I'm committed to that. So please, to our hospitality community, talk to us, let's sign a deal, and let's get more rooms today. Project Room Keys works to bring particularly vulnerable homeless individuals indoors, those who are elderly or who are medically compromised, and provides an opportunity for everybody to step up. So I'd like to make a big announcement with this too. To speed up what we are doing, tonight I am appointing for the City of Los Angeles, John Vane, to lead this effort as my ambassador to the hotel and motel community. It was his first day in this role yesterday. But John is a business leader. He's already the president, as a volunteer, the president of our Convention and Tourism Development Board. So he has relationships with our hospitality industry. He's a proven leader and somebody who I know will help save even more lives. Thank you, John, for your help. And so to the hotels and motels that want to get involved, let me tell you where you can go. coronavirus.lacity.org/rooms. It's that easy, and we welcome your help. When we talk about saving lives, it's not just about lives, it's also about livelihoods. And so I want to spend a second today, because so many people are suffering. They've been laid off, or they have fewer hours. They don't know what their future holds. Some of them don't qualify for the federal assistance. They can't make their rent, and they fear being homeless when this is over. This is a time of immense stress for folks that are working class and our lowest income Angelinos, and even everyday Angelinos who had something in the bank but wonder how long it will still be there. COVID has hit our economy extremely hard, and in future addresses I'll start talking about what we're doing to think about how the economy gets restarted, the investments we can make in making sure that people have jobs, that companies and businesses don't go under, that are our key employers, and all the things we can do to have a stronger social safety net to catch people who right now are suffering so much. As you all will remember, we launched an $11 million small business emergency microloan program. That's about 2 out of every $100 in the country that local governments have offered out of their own budgets, to make sure that we can get capital in the hands of small businesses so they can keep employees on the payroll. And we've had a 4-fold oversubscription, and we're looking for dollars to continue to put in there, but some of those loans are already moving out the door. But as much as the city can do on our own, I've always said it's really our federal government and our tax dollars in Washington, that while we have pennies, they have dollars upon dollars to help us with. Washington's coronavirus legislation, the relief legislation, helps a lot. But as I've said before, the $349 billion in Small Business Administration loans are a start to survival, not a road to recovery. And so I've been in close contact with our national leaders, congressional leaders, folks in the Senate and the House, in the administration, and together with fellow mayors to ensure that we get in the next round the priorities that we need to see to save livelihoods here in Los Angeles. The relief legislation establishes 2 types of loans: economic injury disaster loans and the Paycheck Protection Program. You've probably heard it, it's described as PPP. And there's a lot of confusion about which one is right and which one to apply to. On top of that frustration, many businesses are going to banks and are being told they don't qualify. They've never done businesses with those banks are oversubscribed, so they're helping out the companies that they already work with, and smaller businesses in particular, who are already undercapitalized, who don't have those connections with banks, are being lost in the lurch. That's why tonight I'm urging the Los Angeles banking community to be part of the solution with us, and announcing the LA Cares Corps. This is a partnership between the city and the county, the private sector and volunteers to help provide small businesses with the help they need to apply to these federal loans. Remember, these are competitive loans. So if another part of the country is better at this than us, that means there'll be less money for our businesses to apply to. We've got to be fast, we've got to be knowledgeable, and we have to assume that a lot of people don't know how to go through the red tape of the applications. So this care corps are angels who will literally, virtually, not face-to-face, help people out to apply for these loans, figure out which one is best, also which ones they can apply to at the city, county, state, and federal levels. And there's an informative website that we already have up, we're announcing today, at coronavirus.lacity.org/CaresCorps. That's with C-O-R-P-S, CaresCorps. And business owners can obtain a clear explanation of these two different programs. And we have a call-in center at 833-238-4450, where business owners can obtain assistance from trained loan counselors in completing these SBA loan applications. And finally, for businesses that aren't eligible for SBA loans, and know that if you're a nonprofit employer, you are eligible both for the city and federal programs. So whether it's a religious institution, a nonprofit, an educational institution, you too can apply for these. There's information on how to apply for our city's small business loans there as well, or to obtain assistance through one of our business source centers. I want our small businesses to know that our city is here to help, but I also want to send that message to our immigrant and undocumented communities as well, because they have been bypassed by Washington. They are an integral part of our city. They pay taxes, but besides, through their children, maybe getting some additional SNAP or food stamps, there is nothing that has been passed by Washington to assist those workers. That's why Congress needs to come back to the table and give relief to the estimated 2.5 million undocumented immigrants in our state, including the 375,000 here in the city of Los Angeles. Countywide, we estimate there's about 650,000 undocumented workers who today may not be working. Over half of their jobs are endangered by the COVID-19 crisis, and it's estimated that at a minimum, a quarter of them will be lost. Governor Newsom has taken a positive step moving forward to fill this gap by announcing $50 million in microloans to small businesses, including immigrant-owned businesses that aren't eligible for federal relief. And I'm very encouraged and want to thank Governor Newsom for working with the legislature on a package for undocumented immigrants. Families in need don't have time to wait for a lifeline. They need one right now. And let's be clear to folks here. If we don't have immigrants spending on Main Street, our entire economy won't come back. We are all in this together. Every life matters and every person matters. We need to make sure we are in this boat together. That's why today, along several of my fellow mayors in California, Mayors Breed in San Francisco, Liccardo in San Jose, Steinberg up in Sacramento, Schaff in Oakland, Pulido in Santa Ana, Garcia in Long Beach, Tubbs in Stockton. I'm again calling on the state to fill the gap for our undocumented community by retroactively extending the California Earned Income Tax Credit to all Californians, regardless of their immigration status. This step would immediately provide 600,000 individuals, of which 200,000 are children, with much needed relief to get through these tough weeks together. To learn about how much you can save, and this is eligible to all lower income working class Californians, go to CalEITC4me.org. That's CalEITC4me.org, and click on Earn It to see how much you can get if you are eligible. This is a common sense and compassionate action, and I hope we can all get behind this, regardless of our party, regardless of our zip code, regardless of our ethnicity. We all need to help. I also want to speak about immigrants too. I mentioned this yesterday in a question, but there is absolutely no place for the discrimination and hate crimes that we are seeing across this country and even in this region against members of our Asian and Pacific Islander community. There is no excuse for that, and it will be dealt with and prosecuted. Please report any such anti-Asian hate crimes that we see. Report any hate crimes ever, but in particular during this crisis, by calling 877-ASK-LAPD. If there's something that's ongoing, of course, call 911 or avail yourself of 311. This is a proudly Asian and Pacific city, one in which our destiny has always been built and included folks who trace their ancestry back to Asia. And we have no place for that sort of bigotry in the face of this crisis that should be bringing us together. Now, there are more than a dozen ways right now that we are helping everyday Angelinos to deal with this moment. And from the start of this crisis, Angelinos have expressed concerns about what happens if you lose a job and you can't pay the rent. So let me spend a couple minutes on this as well. Today, city, county, and state and federal agencies are helping low-income individuals and families to get food, to pay for basic necessities like rent and medical care, to get supplemental income, and to qualify for safety net programs. In the coming days, I'll be welcoming a county official here who together with me can walk you through what some of these programs are and the confusion. Together, they are a very strong arsenal to meet the crisis of this moment. When it comes to housing, we're doing our part as the city, early on, issuing the toughest protections for residential tenants to ensure that nobody will be evicted if they can't cover their payments due to this pandemic. And the courts at the state level have joined us in halting evictions, closing a very important loophole that could have allowed people to be evicted the day after this emergency was declared over. I also froze rents for all rent-stabilized units, representing about 80% of our city's rental units and all of our lowest rent ones. And I want to reiterate tonight my support for federal direct assistance for renters and for mortgage holders, those landlords, mom and pop folks, to get past the payments that they have to have. For our lowest income residents, they don't have jobs, they don't have income, they can't pay the rent. For many of the folks who also own these mom and pop apartments, they can't make their mortgages, they can't pay the rent. We need the federal government to directly assist them, to be able to help them to get through these times. And I've joined with other mayors. I'm proud to see the city council introduce motions along those lines, and I'll be signing each and every one of them when they come to my desk. Getting through this emergency requires us to be flexible and understanding. So let me give you some more advice if you're a renter and or a landlord. It requires renters and landlords to work together. First with renters, know your rights. If you can't pay your rent, don't leave your home. But understand that your landlords might be struggling too, so communicate with them. That's good for you in terms of your legal rights. It's good for us all in terms of the communication. Let them know in writing about your economic circumstances as a result of COVID-19 as soon as possible. Do it tonight if you haven't done it. Make a plan for how and when you'll start paying back your rent, and look at income assistance so that that can be taken care of for you, whether it's from the federal government or local efforts like the Angelino Fund that I ask folks to donate to each night that is giving cash assistance to Angelinos and families in need. Landlords cannot force you to provide documents of lost income or hardship. That's a misconception. And you are not required to sign any payment agreements. And our Housing and Community Investment Department is here to help. They're investigating tenant complaints and informing landlords and renters about the rules. They can answer your questions, provide you with a sample letter, and you can go to their website. It's called HCID, so HCIDLA.lacity.org. That's HCIDLA.lacity.org. And as we work to protect our vulnerable tenants and to support responsible landlords, we're also making it clear we will not tolerate illegal activity by property owners that threaten public health and people's lives. We've received some disturbing reports of property managers who are running unpermitted short-term rental operations that violate city law in apartment buildings. In some cases, we've learned of illegal units that are being used for parties that defy our safer-at-home order. We've heard from residents, including seniors and those with medical conditions who fear for their lives because their landlords are reducing rents and letting tourists occupy nearby rooms. These operators are not only flagrantly violating city code, but critical emergency orders that I've put forward to protect everyone's health. That cannot and it will not be tolerated. Let me reiterate, short-term rentals are allowed only in a property owner's primary residence and only after securing a proper registration number from the city. If illegal short-term rentals continue and endanger those who are following physical distancing rules, then we will take aggressive enforcement actions, including fines and criminal charges. To that end, we have taken now enforcement actions against the operators of the Ellison Suites in Venice. City Attorney Mike Feuer and his office, working together with Councilmember Mike Bonin, have filed a 26-count criminal case for substandard conditions at this site, along with a civil suit to prohibit this property from being used as a hotel. This global pandemic is not a chance for unscrupulous actors to take advantage of us. I won't stand for that in this city. And this is a crisis or not, we will not allow these activities to stand, period. Now, on a more positive note, The strength of Los Angeles has always been the way that we pull together, the good that we appeal to in one another, that extraordinary neighbor who's getting groceries for her senior neighbor, that person who's going out and working at a food bank, the people who are donating to help us with the efforts to make sure that there's cash in the hands of families that can't make the rent and can't buy food. Los Angeles' philanthropic community has been absolutely stunning during this. And each night I try to highlight some of the folks who have stepped up and who are helping us. For 70 years, the W.M. Keck Foundation has been an integral part of Southern California, endowing the Keck School of Medicine at USC and being a key supporter of PBS here in the Southland. And I'm very grateful to report that the Keck Foundation, led by Chairman Robert Day and co-presidents Joe Day and Steve Keck, have contributed $500,000 to the Mayor's Fund for Los Angeles to help us with those efforts. Child care for our healthcare workers, senior meals, and cash assistance to families. Joining them is another $500,000 donation from the Ring Foundation, headed by my dear friend and former colleague, former City Councilwoman Cindy Misikowski. It's named after her husband, Doug Ring, and his late mother, Norma Ring, who are two of LA's incredible pillars. A friend of mine, Doug Ring, and a great man, and Cindy, I thank you in his memory and your great work for joining us in this effort. These funds are being put to work right now. As I mentioned, grocery cards that have already gone out the door, cash assistance that's coming this week, senior meals that are being served as we speak. These things make a difference, and they are part of our safety net here to show what a city of angels really is about. And I'm also grateful to our working men and women who comprise the United Brotherhood of Carpenters, who have stepped up with $500,000 as well. Folks who are working hard right now to do things like building our homeless shelters and our critical infrastructure, and who reached with their own dues in their own pockets to give $500,000 to even needier folks that are out there today. Thank you. And I want to thank Dan Langford, as well as our General President, LA native Doug McCarran, for their commitment to rebuilding the middle class and helping us all hang on. Finally, all of us in LA know that while there's movie stars that bring the tourists here, it's really the set carpenters and lighting technicians, the behind-the-scenes blue-collar workers in this industry who have helped us. And we have yet another incredible donation that comes from one of the most famous companies right here in Los Angeles. And I want to thank the Fox Corporation, whose historic studios and backlot are an iconic part of our city. And tonight they have donated $1 million to the Angelino Fund to help folks in greatest need here in LA. Thank you so much. All of you can help at mayorsfundla.org. Every donation counts. It's the $5 donations that help as much as those $1 million ones, especially if you're on a fixed income or you don't have a lot of savings. And I'm so moved by people who write stories or talk to folks on the phone saying, I know how bad things are for me, but there's somebody worse off, and I'm giving tonight. There's nothing that's straightforward or simple about this moment. There's nothing easy about what we go through. But let me end where I started tonight. As some Angelinos sit down at a Seder with fewer people this year, as we celebrate what this night means to many of us, my rabbi, Sharon Brous, put out in a sermon here today that this is a decision we can all make each day. Passover reminds us, and many of our religious holidays, to not live in fear, to know that in the stories of humanity, we have had dark moments of pestilence, of slavery, of moments when we didn't know when the light would come. But if we refuse to not live in fear, anything is possible. And we can take what is called ma'afila la'ora, moving from darkness into light. That is my wish for all of you tonight. As many gear up for Easter, as Muslim community gears up for Ramadan a week and a half later, that we can all take this moment to be grateful, not only for what we have, but of the idea of something bigger than ourselves, of saving lives and helping our fellow human beings. And for those of us of faith who can see that made in God's image, we are all expected to do something bigger and greater than who we are. So as always, I would like to end by saying stay healthy, stay safe, and stay at home. Chag Sameach for those who are celebrating tonight. I wish you all God's blessings and all strength and love, Los Angeles. With that, be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Hi, Mayor. We have a question from Alex Michelson. The line is open.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Chag Sameach, and happy Passover to you and your family.
Thank you very much. You too.
Let's talk for a moment about the issue of antibodies and the antibody test. There's been a lot of thought that if you can test antibodies, you might be able to see if somebody had coronavirus already, which would potentially make them safe to go back to work. Right. What's the status of that, and are you working with any companies locally to kind of get that sped up?
Absolutely. We have a small number of those tests. We're using them and trying to figure out where to best deploy them, and also working with USC, County Public Health, Stanford, and others, people like Sean Parker, who are funding studies right now to look at, these are great to see prevalence. In other words, how many people have this virus who might not have symptoms, but we can get a more honest number. You take a few thousand random people who are representative of the county, for instance, give them each one of these antibody tests, and we can really see a true percentage. What we report every night is not the percentage of people who have the novel coronavirus. It's only reporting the number of people who have been tested positive through the tests that have been given to them. And we know there's many, many more. I don't know that it's the tip of the iceberg, but it is a fraction of the overall number. Second, we hope that the national government will help us scale this up across the United States. If there's one place that I would love to see Washington step up and help private sector, it would be to make sure not only these tests work and have a good response rate, because early on some of them there were some false positives, but they're looking pretty good now. But secondarily, to see how can we get as many of these spread around the country as possible. Today I spoke with many of our business leaders on a conference call. I spoke with our faith leaders as well. Many of them talked about this. Could we ourselves, a business, test all of our employees and then see the ones that are immune and have them start coming back to work in the future? And I think that is a sound plan. So we're putting just those initial conversations. I know the county's also working on that, but we need to have 1, the quantity, 2, the quality of them, and then 3, the process by which we would kind of allow people to do that. In China, people have a red, yellow, green card. We have a different society here, different freedoms. We'll have to see what works well with our system. But the idea of folks having an immunity passport or something that allows them to be able to work certainly would accelerate, for me, our economic recovery and my ability as mayor to lift the orders for some people in coming weeks. But I don't want people to have false expectations. That is still a while off. In Wuhan, which had a very strict lockdown, like I said, it was 76 days. Here, I think we intervened earlier, but we have not hit the peak. We won't hit the peak for anywhere between 1 or 2 weeks and a month by most of the projections. So that is something for us to be able to consider for in May and June. But if we can get that ready now, I would love for Los Angeles to lead the way, and we are having those conversations with companies, with researchers, and seeing if we can get that kind of quantity for the future. Thanks, Alex. Next question, please.
Thank you. We'll go to Claudia Pashuta with KNX News Radio. The line is open.
Good evening, Claudia.
Eric, happy Passover.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask about testing. When you give the numbers, you are talking about individual tests, correct? You're not talking about people who have been tested, because sometimes people get multiple tests. And then also, I'm wondering if you know if first responders and healthcare workers are getting tests, before they start showing symptoms. So for the general public, you have to show symptoms, but I'm wondering for people who have come into regular contact with people who are COVID-19 positive or possibly positive, if they're getting regular testing even without symptoms.
Yes, we actually started with our first responders when we opened up the first drive-through center. We had a few other people, but it was mostly for our firefighters, our police officers, and others on the front line, or who had wondered if they had been exposed but were not necessarily symptomatic. That started with 200 people the first day in a parking lot near Dodger Stadium. Now that is a set group. It's a small fraction of the overall test now that we have so many, but regularly, yes, and anybody who is one of those healthcare workers and or first responders who needs a test, we are providing them. In terms of the first question, no, this is individuals, the number that I give, individuals. So if I didn't make that clear, I'm sorry. If you looked at overall tests, you're right, because some people do have 2 or 3 tests, it would be a much higher number of overall tests given. But that is the number of individuals now through our drive-through centers and that one walk-in center, as well as our distribution through our now homeless and senior networks that we are doing. Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. We'll go to Elizabeth Chow with Los Angeles Daily News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Liz.
Hi. I was wondering, so The hotel and motel rooms, there is a goal to reach 15,000 rooms, and I was wondering how that will be paid for, and if that's a feasible goal to be able to reach quickly. And also, what are some steps they're taking to quickly set up more permanent housing for people after perhaps the 3-month lease that you have?
Yep.
That appear to be the typical lease for the hotel motel rooms that are for homeless people.
So the 15,000 goal that the county put forward, which I support 150%, is admittedly a very ambitious one. And that's why I announced tonight some help by having kind of a czar of the hotel and motel rooms with John Vane from the city side to help ink these deals even more quickly. Though I do want to thank the state and the county who have done this. Initially, there was state money for this, but the good news was that FEMA said this is a reimbursable expense. So while we can use that state money up front that was given to us for homelessness response, emergency response, that should be mostly reimbursed 75 or 100% of that from FEMA. First time ever, I talked about this I think a couple nights ago, this has never been done in the history of the United States. It's something I called for 3 years ago when I said it would be great to have a state of emergency at the national level, where before, remember when El Nino was coming and I said, why can't we get FEMA dollars to help folks who are living on the streets not die or in riverbeds? But the policy back then, and for administrations before, it wasn't unique to this, FEMA only reimbursed after something bad happened, not when we knew something bad was coming. This is the first time that we're able to house people who have not yet contracted COVID-19, so they will be reimbursed, and so it's partially FEMA reimbursable, and that's allowed us to be so aggressive. So I hope that we'll continue to try to get thousands of these. To the second part of your question, what happens afterwards? That's also a point I've been making until I'm blue in the face. We cannot let this be a moment in which the federal government and or state gives us these dollars and then says, hey, when it's done, good luck, and these people are back on the streets. I mean, that would be one of the greatest tragedies of this moment. I don't harbor the idea that one for one we'll get 100% of people out of motel and hotel rooms and everybody will have a quick and happy ending of going into housing. But we better get as close to one-to-one as we can. So I've asked a separate part of my team to start working with our Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, whether it means more construction, very tough to do in 2 months to stand up new housing, virtually impossible, but there are some modular things that we could do, or potentially with some of these motels and hotels. As I think I shared with you, there was one hotel that is looking to help out right now, but said that its funding has fallen through for its development project, and they would be maybe interested in selling us the entire hotel that we could then keep for folks who have been experiencing homelessness to stay off the streets. But we have to look at each of those buildings, make sure that we can staff them, make sure that there are facilities for people to live there. But I do think that this would be a wasted opportunity if we don't get as many of those thousands of people who go into hotel rooms and motel rooms permanently, either at those places or through other housing housed. So we are ramping up for that while we simultaneously are trying to find those rooms to put them in today. And thank you so much for that question. It's a really critical point. Next question, please.
I'm going to go to Steve Gregory with KFI News. Please go ahead.
Hey, Steve.
Eric, good evening. Happy Passover.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you real quick, what is your thoughts on freelancers? And we're getting a lot of feedback from listeners about the impacts that AB 5 have had on freelancers and people in that community. They seem to be stuck in the middle where they can't really get resources, and because of the new law, it's kind of messed them up a little bit. Also, how soon before the city starts seeing federal dollars actually start getting into the budget here, into the coffers here? And finally, when this is all said and done, kind of looking down the line a little bit, as of now, do you see anything that might be permanently affected or changed as a result of this pandemic? Anything in the city, any policy, anything that you can kind of see in the top of your head? You know what? That's been changed, and it's probably going to stay that way after the fact.
On that last one, it's probably too early to say specifically, but I certainly hope so. I hope that we learn the lessons of how quick we can come together when we need to. And so whether we're addressing poverty or racism, whether we're looking at homelessness, whether we're looking at issues like domestic violence, and I want to thank everybody who's stepped up and is donating to help us continue to expand domestic violence beds in the midst of this. I hope that we can continue to cut red tape bureaucracy. At the federal level, I hope that we will have something change permanently that allows us to get reimbursed for disasters that are every day on our streets, like our homelessness crisis here and throughout California, in Washington, and around the country. I hope that, too, we will look at ways that we can help one another. In a negative way, will we change things, or will we have fewer interactions? Will we have more Zoom meetings? Will we have moments in which people are a little more hesitant to be close to each other? I think in the medium term, yes. I think sporting events will be slower to come back, concerts, things like that, but I don't believe that they will be permanent. I think human beings want to come back together, want to congregate, want to celebrate. We love our sports teams. I've been watching too many replays as I go to sleep of old games, and I love watching Lakers Showtime, but I miss our current teams playing and seeing that as well. To the second question, federal money, it hasn't begun to flow to us, but we know it's coming. It has flowed already, probably, we have to assume, to some businesses, because some of that money went out the door the first day, but I don't have a number, and SBA hasn't given us a report for the Los Angeles area, though we do have the biggest SBA office in the country, and a very good one, again, through the banks that the SBA has the umbrella over. But we know that they're good for it. We know what the specific amounts are, and now we know many of the requirements. And I want to thank again FEMA, who's done really an extraordinary job. It's good to see them in charge of things and helping us, whether it was getting the mercy or whether it's getting the reimbursements for the hotel and motel rooms. That's really been an extraordinary stepping forward. And then with the freelancers, you're right. This predates this crisis, but AB 5, some love it, some hate it. It certainly was an opportunity to make sure that freelancers aren't left in the lurch, but that it was different than other states. Some freelancers have complained, well, my company isn't doing business anymore in California and I lost my job. I hope that we can be part of a nationwide movement to recognize that all work matters, that people should have benefits no matter who they are. And as we're seeing even in this, something like the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, is great for a company that has regular employees. But what if you're not a regular employee? You're left in the lurch. You might get some of the cash assistance that's coming to all Americans, but short of that, why shouldn't you be able to, through the company that you freelance for, also get that sort of assistance if they get that? And I'd like to see that addressed in the federal legislation that moves forward from here. Those were the three questions. Thanks so much, Steve. Next question.
Go next to Adrian Florida with NPR. Please go ahead.
Hey, Adrian.
Hi. Mayor, a number of cities have announced the creation of funds that will actually put public money into direct payments for undocumented immigrants. I know there's this Mayor's Fund. It's unclear to me whether there's public money in there. And I'm wondering if that's something that you are looking into or are willing to do, and if
Yes.
not, why not?
All of our programs, both the ones we're raising private and foundation, philanthropic money, and our public money, will make sure that anybody, regardless of whether you're an immigrant or not, papers or not, that any Angelino is treated equally. So there is access to all of those for everyone. We're working with immigrant rights groups and others who have those networks, and quite frankly, the work that we do all the time with folks to make sure nobody is excluded in the way that the federal legislation did. So there is cash direct assistance to folks, including undocumented, that will come from the Angelino Fund that we are trying to raise $10 million into. We're pretty close, and some of that money will keep going, but I think we could easily try to double or triple that, and I'm looking all the time and calling for more donors on that. And our city programs, where we're using funds, for instance, for our small business assistance, that can go to immigrant-owned businesses, including undocumented immigrants. So we absolutely, unless there's a federal prohibition on money that we have from the federal government, the state doesn't put those requirements and we don't put those requirements. So it is absolutely open to everybody and will go to folks regardless of their status. Thanks. Next question.
We'll go to Jintak Han with UCLA Daily Bruin. Please go ahead.
Hey, Jintek, how are you?
Hi there. Happy Passover.
Thank you.
I have a question about your order from yesterday.
Yeah.
We looked at the text of the order, and it says it only applies to certain non-medical essential workers. We're looking at the order, and those order doesn't apply to some workers who are at higher risk of exposure but may not be able to get protection, notably postal workers. How does the city plan to protect these non-medical workers who may not be able to get these protective equipment, but the order doesn't protect them?
Yeah, so we tried to look as comprehensively as we can. These are dynamic orders we can always add to. Postal workers, I'll have to check with my staff, but I think there wasn't the direct kind of store type of interactions, and that's why. We certainly have made sure that there's folks like taxi drivers, ride-share drivers, folks that are working construction sites, et cetera. But those seem to be the ones in which we are told by public health the sorts of interactions that they have, that facial coverings could have an impact in slowing the spread of COVID-19. I want to be clear, too, I don't know if this was in the question, when we said non-medical emergency workers, of course there's an even higher threshold that is being used by first responders and medical workers with N95 masks, with surgical masks, with PPE, with face shields, and with clothing that will help protect them. So that it wasn't to exclude them. They have an even higher one, but these other folks were not covered. We keep saying that people were our heroes who are our grocery clerks, folks that were helping us drive buses, et cetera. We now wanted to make sure that that was mandated, that employers knew that they had a responsibility, that employees knew that they had a protection, and that it wasn't just about the facial coverings, the ability to get to a bathroom, wash your hands every half hour. These are proven things that can help slow the spread, and we wanted to make sure that they were covered. But I'll follow up if we have anything specific on the postal workers, but that didn't seem to be in one of the categories that was most at risk given advice from public health. Next question, please. Thank you.
Our next questions are in Spanish, and that will come from Abel Alamiel with Telemundo 52. Please go ahead.
Buenas tardes. Good evening.
Hi, Mayor. Good evening. If you could please expand more in Spanish on how the Earned Income Tax Credit plan can possibly benefit Angelinos, including the immigrant community, and do you think that this plan would actually become a reality?
Great. Okay. I actually have that in my Spanish talking points, so I'm going to do that in the longer speech if that's okay. Did we have any other questions in Spanish or from Spanish media?
We do have another question.
Okay, why don't I take that one too, and I'll make sure that we put that in there, okay? Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We'll go next to Victor Cordero with KRCA Channel 62. Please go ahead.
Mayor, how you doing? Victor Cordero with Estrella TV Canal 62. My question is if you can answer it in Spanish. I don't know if you said that you are going to do that right now, but I'll ask you in English and see what we can do. Just as my colleague from Telemundo asked you in regards of the tax break for the Latinos, especially undocumented in the city. Yep. And number two, something regarding the order that you gave yesterday for the masks. Some of the smaller businesses and employees are afraid that their boss won't be able to provide them. And if he doesn't provide the masks, he would probably send them home, which means they would not work. What would be the protocol in this case?
Okay, great. Let me say that in English, and then I'll work that into Spanish, and then I'll give my larger address, and I'll address the Earned Income Tax Credit. So if there are employees who have an employee who say, no, we're not going to get you a mask or reimburse you for the mask, because the order says that. So facial covering, either you can give them the bill for it, nothing gold-plated, not hundreds of dollars, obviously just a normal facial mask. The employer has to pay you for that or provide that to you. So that is the order, and that is the law. If you have any questions about that or have an employer who tries to say you have to go home, you can't work, call us at 311, let us know, and we'll make sure that we take our business ambassador team out there immediately. That is in violation of the law. Nobody should lose their job because they're trying to protect themselves. And we know we added restaurants to this. We know there were a lot of restaurant workers who were working in pretty dangerous conditions. Kitchens are small. It was one of the places we felt we need food. We want to keep our restaurants in business, but also the public health advice is that was one of the riskier areas. So it's really critical that all employers abide by this. So, la ley en Los Ángeles por las mascarillas no medicales, todos los pequeñas empresas, todos los negociantes deben dar el dinero por una mascarilla o dar una mascarilla a sus empleados. Es una violación de la ley si ellos no pueden hacer esto. Y por favor, llámanos a 311 si tu dueño de su negocio no está cumpliendo con este orden. Este orden es muy importante para nuestra gente, es muy importante por los empleados en restaurantes y otros negocios, tiendas, y este orden no es una opción, es mandatorio. With that, I'm going to do some longer Spanish. Gracias a todos, muy buenas tardes, Los Ángeles, y gracias por venir esta noche a la Alcaldía de Los Ángeles. Hoy hubieron 620 nuevos casos en el condado de Los Ángeles. En total llegamos a 7,530 casos. En la ciudad de Los Ángeles hubieron 230 casos, llegaron a un total de 3,360. Y hoy fallecieron 21 personas más. Este es una cantidad más grande en la historia de esta crisis, y llegando a un total de 198 almas que fallecieron aquí. Y este es el mayor número de muertes, y lo siento mucho por las familias que están sufriendo como resultado de este. En nuestros hospitales tenemos 1,548 camas disponibles, entre ellas, y 247 están en las unidades de cuidados intensivos, y tenemos 1,042 respiradores disponibles. Hoy hicimos pruebas de detección a 3,500 personas, más de 4,000 personas. En total hemos hecho pruebas a 28,000 personas en estos centros, y estamos en camino para hacer 30,000 pruebas para mañana. Si tienes síntomas de coronavirus, visita la página coronavirus.lacity.org/testing para hacer una prueba de detección. Este año, con la fiesta de Pascua, no podemos arriesgarnos al mantener los parques abiertos. Por eso, esta noche le he ordenado al Departamento de Recreación y Parques que cierre todos los parques públicos entre la noche del sábado 11 de abril hasta el lunes 13 de abril en la mañana. Seguimos ampliando los servicios de emergencia para proteger a nuestros vecinos sin hogar, incluyendo alojado a personas sin hogar en hoteles. Hoy estoy anunciando a nuestro presidente de la Junta del Centro de Convenciones y Turismo, John Vane, como nuestro nuevo embajador a la comunidad hotelera. Los hoteles interesados en participar pueden visitar la página coronavirus.lacity.org/rooms. Seguimos nuestro trabajo ayudando a pequeñas empresas, pero necesitamos ayuda también de Washington, y el paquete de estímulo económico que lanzaron no es suficiente. Por eso, esta noche estoy lanzando LA Cares Core, una colaboración entre el condado y la ciudad para ofrecer ayuda a pequeñas empresas para someter sus solicitudes para créditos federales. Las pequeñas empresas pueden visitar la página coronavirus.lacity.org/CaresCorps para más información. Además, pueden llamar al 833-238-4450 o visitar nuestros centros de recursos para empresas para recibir asistencia. Sabemos que la asistencia federal excluye a las personas más vulnerables, y mientras esperamos que el Congreso tome acción, las ciudades estamos tomando acción hoy. Junto con varios alcaldes de California, le estoy pidiendo otra vez al Estado que ofrezca el crédito por ingresos del trabajo para todos los californianos, sin importar su estatus migratorio. Este es crítico. Toda la gente de California merece ayuda durante esta crisis, y Sacramento tiene el poder a dar esta asistencia a toda la gente. Los nativos, los inmigrantes con documentos y sin documentos también. Durante este tiempo difícil, esto le dará alivio importante a 600,000 personas, incluyendo 200,000 niños. Por favor, visita este sitio, calEITC4me.org. calEITC4me.org para ver si eres elegible. Pero espero que nuestro gobernador y nuestra legislatura puedan pasar estas acciones o un orden del gobernador Newsom inmediatamente a asistir a nuestros inmigrantes. Y los programas de la ciudad de Los Ángeles por asistencia financiera con el Fondo Angelino. No os importa si tú eres un inmigrante con documentos, sin documentos, o no eres un inmigrante. Toda la gente en Los Ángeles son igual. Y esta asistencia de dinero es igual por todos. Para aquellos quienes no saben si podrán pagar su renta, hemos tomado acción a nivel local para prohibir desalojos. Y también le estamos pidiendo a los inquilinos y propietarios que trabajan juntos, deben comunicar por escrito es importante, sobre su situación actual. Y haga un plan para cuándo y cómo va a pagar la renta que debe. Y usted tiene 12 meses por este. Si necesitan ayuda, pueden visitar la página hcidla.lacity.org. También repito que no permitiremos el uso temporal de unidades de vivienda por propietarios para fiestas ni para turistas. Este pone en riesgo las vidas de vecinos y nuestros residentes. El uso temporal de viviendas es permitido solo si la propiedad es el lugar de residencia primaria del dueño y solo después de obtener un número de registro de la ciudad. Si la renta a corto plazo de viviendas continúa y pone en riesgo las reglas de sana distancia, tomaremos acción agresiva, incluyendo multas y cargos criminales para detenerlo. Nuestro futuro, amigos, en esta crisis no está muy claro por el momento. Pero sabemos que Los Ángeles siempre ha superado obstáculos muy difíciles en la historia de nuestra ciudad. La historia de Pascua es una historia de esperanza, de resurrección. Y espero que todos nosotros, de personas de fe, de muchas tradiciones, puedan reflejar lo mejor de la ciudad y la esperanza de estas historias. Es importante que todos nosotros sabemos que estamos en esta crisis juntos. Entonces, quédense en buena salud, quédense protegidos y quédense en casa. Gracias por todos, gracias por sus acciones y gracias también por su amor. Fuerza y amor, Los Ángeles, y hasta mañana. With that, thank you everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow night.